Good evening, everyone. So the topic of this research article is on the general nutrition practices of competitive powerlifters that's varied based on competitive caliber, sex, weight, and age class. The purpose of this article is to characterize the self-reported nutrition practices and beliefs in powerlifters when it comes to their dietary intake on certain training days and post-training loads. In other words, we're diving in on how powerlifters eat when it comes to conditions such as maintaining weight, cutting to make a weight class they want to compete in, what they must do to maximize their training days and off days. A lot of criteria is covered through nutrition and diet. Um, a majority of the methods used in this article was through surveying. 240 males and 65 female powerlifters completed this survey on self-reported nutrition practices based on criteria such as competitive phases, cycles, hard and easy training days, etc. And the results showed how most of the consensus of powerlifters followed a long-term specific diet in which, through comparison from a normal dietary intake, they eat more than the normal average on harder training days and refrain from eating less on easier training days to maintain optimal strength.
So I'm gonna go over the introduction. So powerlifting focuses on resistance training with three main lifts, the back squat, bench press, and deadlift. So powerlifting also focuses on who can lift the most weight in those three lifts, in simpler terms, the most strength. Performance in these lifts can be aided by things like lifting equipment, age, sex, and the weight category. Factors such as these also determine your competition to keep it a more even playing field. Another main point is powerlifting is resistance training, which increases fat-free mass and improves skeletal muscle hypertrophy. And then dietary strategies are said to be used to help fuel and recover these athletes. To improve strength and performance, dieting correctly is also seen as main focus and not just specific training in the gym. Especially when it comes to weight requirements, dieting is crucial to gain weight and to lose weight. Dietary strategies in powerlifting are taken into account when it comes to before and after training and can also be measured during different phases of training, which also leads to this other topic of competitive or dieting phases in powerlifting. There are two different phases in powerlifting, which is off-season or general preparation and in-season or competitive preparation. This is also referred to as nutritional periodization. Training and dieting is different in the off-season compared to near competitions and trials in terms of training style intensity, calorie intake, due intensity, and weight requirements. This also depends on the goal of the athlete in terms of body composition and training volume. And then also macro intake recommendations for powerlifters. Macro intakes for these athletes is about 4 to 7 grams per kilogram body weight of carbohydrates and 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilogram body weight protein per day. Also, dietary fats are less emphasized, but guidelines advise the remaining 20 to 30% of daily calorie intake to include dietary fats that are sourced from mono and polyunsaturated fats. These guidelines exist because a sufficient dietary protein is necessary to optimize muscle mass accretion, and adequate dietary carb intake can in some circumstances enhance aspects of resistance training performance. And then also two different types of diets if it fits your macros diet versus rigid dieting. These are the two different common types of dieting in powerlifting. If it fits your macros diet is common with these athletes, which is more flexible and moderate compared to rigid dieting, which is when the athlete is on and off the diet. But the overall purpose of this study is to determine the correlation between such dietary practices and the performance of powerlifters.
So for methods for this article, we have a questionnaire with 81 questions, so with about 3 questions for each page and a back button to go back to switch up the answers. So in the questionnaire, we have 5 sections, and the survey is first section is descriptive characteristics and training history, which pretty much is for the first part is nation of competition and competitive division. And for training history, we have powerlifting experience and competitive caliber. So for section 2, we have general dietary themes, which pretty much is their dietary themes overall the competitive cycle. And then for section 3, we also have dietary themes mainly for the competitive cycle for the actual program. And then section 4 and 5, it covered harder and easier training day nutrition practices, which is pretty much for harder, just high volume, high intensity, and for easier, just deload, low intensity, low volume. So for the survey, it was anonymous and was done by individuals who were 18 and older. And the fact is, for the individual, they have to be 18 months free prior of drugs. So no steroids, all natural, nothing to enhance their really ability. That's count as like illegal and stuff. And the surveys are only fully completed. Only fully completed surveys were put into consideration and everything was verified. Missed data checks were performed to verify the data. So yeah, that's pretty much everything for methods for the article.
So this is the graph of giving a general overview of all the participants. It lists the participants' ages, ranging from 18-year-olds to 40 and over. It lists the level of competition that the participants acted in, from club all the way to international, as well as the training experience that the participants have had, and the resistance training experience and the powerlifting experience. And then there's the graph showing the IPF points, which is just the international power points that the participants have received over their powerlifting careers. And then the last graph is a graph that shows the location of each participant and where they are from. So after receiving all the data, the article showed that 66% of the participants followed a long-term diet, which meant that they kept the diet within the prep, the off-season, and the before the prep. 46.9% did not introduce a diet before the competition, so they just ate pretty much freely up until the day that they started doing their competition. And then during the off-season, it was found that females had more of a if it fits your macros diet than males, to try and keep like a more thinner and more lean body. And then 71.8% ate more carbohydrates or ate more foods that had higher carbs on harder training days to have a higher energy output and to not get fatigued as quick. And then 61% did not eat less on an easier day, meaning that they did not eat less like on rest days or on days where they trained not as intense. They still had a similar diet to make sure that there was no like outside factors.
All right. So the first point of discussion for this lab was focused on nutrition practices differing for specific competitive phases. So the research indicated that during the competition, preparation and off-season phases, powerlifters adhere to the if it fits your macros flexible dieting regimen. However, during the competition phase, there is a diverse range of dietary strategies employed with variations in calorie and micronutrient intake. So female powerlifters tend to focus more on diets for weight loss or improving body composition, while differences in competitive level indicate varying priorities in balancing training performance and weight management strategies. The second point of discussion was focused on energy intake practices differing by sex. So research shows that females powerlifters often follow diets that restrict energy intake more often than males, possibly because of the sport's focus on the weight and body composition. This increases the risk of disorder eating behavior, especially among female athletes, emphasizing the need for more research to understand and address these issues in powerlifting and similar sports. It's crucial to ensure that female athletes have enough energy available to maintain their health and perform well in training. The third point of discussion was focused on harder versus easier training day energy predispositions. So basically, the research showed that powerlifters eat more food on intense training days and stick to their usual intake on rest days. They estimate that their food intake using long questionnaires or phone app and circular energy burned during workouts using the metabolic equivalent of task method. These methods help them match their food intake with their training needs. And finally, the last point of discussion was focused on the limitations of the study, which indicated that self-reported nutrition practices may not always match actual intake, excluding younger sub-junior powerlifters and having fewer female participants could affect how well the findings apply to all powerlifters. Also, since more participants were from North America and Europe, the results might not fully represent powerlifters in other regions because of differences in culture and economics. And then can you just go to the next slide? Okay, so these are some of the main takeaways in real-world applications. So the study showed us really different nutrition patterns of powerlifters that helps give insight into several world applications. This can involve coaches, nutritionists, and different kinds of athletes. In this case of the study, powerlifters. So when it comes to training day nutrition, coaches and nutritionists can use the results to personalize nutrition plans for powerlifters based on their different competition stages. Then there's education and awareness. This can be used as educational material for powerlifters, coaches, and nutritionists to spread awareness about effective nutrition practices in the powerlifting community. Then there's tailoring nutrition guidance to gender-specific concentrations. So acknowledging that female powerlifters often restrict energy and diet for body composition reasons more than males allows coaches and nutritionists to offer more personalized guidance and support that considers gender-specific needs and goals. And then finally, this research can help with customizing dietary strategies. So coaches and athletes can use these insights to fine-tune nutrition for training, making sure to fuel up properly on tough training days and recover well on rest or lightened training days.
In conclusion, we got from this article that powerlifters have a if it fits your macros or flexible diet during the competitive cycle. And then during prep and the off-season, diet is more strict in order to not let themselves get like too out of shape or too out of proportion. On higher volume days, they had a higher energy intake, basically more carbs in their meals to not get fatigued as quick. And then for days where there was either a rest day or a lighter workout day, they had lower energy intake since they felt like they didn't have to produce as much power. And then this is the reference that we all use for the article. Thank you.